Baldur's Gate 3 ruined gaming. This is a sentiment that I keep seeing all across the gaming landscape. There's this idea growing that Baldur's Gate 3 has somehow single-handedly changed gaming forever, perhaps even for the worse. One recent thread over on the Baldur's Gate 3 subreddit with almost 8,000 upvotes reads as follows. I think this game just straight up ruined gaming for me. Nearing 300 hours in 2 complete runs, I want to take a break from this game and just let it breathe for a second. But what the hell am I supposed to go back to? Everything else that I even think about as an option seems so much more inferior. My best bet at the moment will just probably be taking a break from gaming altogether and returning to this when the time is right. F you, Larian, with love. But why is that? How did this happen, and why do so many gamers all over the world feel this way? Well, let's just take a look at what Baldur's Gate 3 is at its core. And here, many would just describe it as a turn-based CRPG. And it is, but that's not the main reason BG3 has seen such success, which there are several reasons for, by the way. But the core sitting at the heart of Larian's epic is that of choice. You see, Baldur's Gate 3 is essentially built on top of the foundationary pillars of what an actual role-playing game should be. The first and most basic manner of choice is your choice of what your hero will look like, what class you'll play, and even what race this hero belongs to. Secondly, your choice of items to equip, what weapons to use, and what clothes or armor to wear, which is just another core gameplay aspect nowadays. And third, your choice of what your character is going to say in dialogue scenes. Now this is where we start getting into the real core of what makes BG3 so fulfilling. Because unlike some other RPGs released these past few years, Baldur's Gate 3's dialogue system is built around the idea that what you say actually matters, and things can change drastically depending on how you go about expressing yourself. And to make the game feel even more immersive and alive, Larian went so far as to mocap most of the dialogue scenes in the game, which brings just yet another layer of depth to an already advanced system. Couple this with voice actors like that of Neil Newbon, Jennifer English, and other equally skilled actors, and you have yourself dialogue scenes that rivals even that of Oscar-winning film productions in terms of memorability. This, unsurprisingly, turns an already immersive gaming session into the most impactful and engaging experience since, well, forever, and you can't really find this type of complexity in any game released in recent memory. And I think, in my humble opinion, that this is the main reason why Baldur's Gate 3 resonates so well with so many people. No matter if you're a CRPG veteran or if this is the first game you've ever played of this genre. It's simply so engaging that it's almost impossible to put the game down even for a moment. The game is so filled to the brim with so many details that you just have to check out on the masterfully crafted maps, and even here Larian doesn't force you to take one path to reach your objective, but instead they usually provide you with different options on how to get somewhere, which again cements the idea of player choice that actually matters to the players themselves. And this, my ladies and gentlemen, is really the meat and potatoes of this issue. An engaging world, impactful dialogue scenes, excellently written and acted characters, meaningful player choice. But MrHulthen, not every game can have meaningful choices and dialogue scenes that rivals that of the silver screen, I hear you say, and you're absolutely right. Not every game will or even can have these kinds of things, because not every game is an RPG, even less a true RPG. As I mentioned before, Baldur's Gate 3 was built upon the principles of making the best role-playing game possible. And in that category, Larian has succeeded to an astronomical degree. Take a game like Marvel's Spider-Man 2, for example, which I'm currently playing through. Spider-Man 2 is a tremendously fun game because, yes, you guessed it, you get to play as Spider-Man. There's no other game that provides the experience of swinging through New York City at breakneck speeds and saving people left and right while looking incredibly stylish doing so. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom provides you with a massive game world where you're allowed to experiment and find your own solutions to incredibly well thought out problems, like completing a certain puzzle or getting from point A to B. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, despite its technical issues at launch, guides you through detailed, semi-open world sections where you slice up stormtroopers and other hostiles with your own customized lightsaber. In one of the best written Star Wars stories, period. No kidding, the Jedi games has cemented Cal as one of my favorite Star Wars characters ever. Now that's saying something. Cyberpunk 2077 takes you on an excellent story set in a very dark future where everything is cyber and artificial in some capacity. And while Night City might have been artificial and surface level on release, CDPR has made an experience unlike any other, especially with the release of Phantom Liberty and patch 2.0, which in my opinion turned Cyberpunk 2077 into what it should have been at launch. There's just nothing like driving through the streets of Night City while listening to some good synthwave music, and I'm pretty sure CDPR had that in mind while making this game. Genshin Impact lets you explore a vast game world for free and provides you the option to pay your monthly rent for some sweet, sweet Primogems. Because man, you really need that Raiden in your team, huh? Please, oh god of the titty sword, please, oh please just drop. Seriously though, Genshin Impact is really just the ultimate gacha game, and it really does scratch that itch of obtaining characters and other collectibles, and no other game really comes close to scratching that itch. What I'm trying to say here is that Baldur's Gate 3 fulfills a certain niche that none of these other games do, which again comes down to ultimate player choice in its purest form. Yes, the games I mentioned all have some form of player choice, but not to the ludicrous degree that Baldur's Gate 3 has. And saying that, Baldur's Gate 3, as much as it is an incredible game, obviously doesn't let you do the things as mentioned from the other games. BG3 doesn't let you swing a lightsaber. It doesn't let you swing through New York as Spider-Man. So with all this said, one could say that no, Baldur's Gate 3 has not ruined gaming. Not by a long shot. Because me and you who may think this way and millions of other players can still find enjoyment and fulfillment from other games. And of course, the previously mentioned games. But what Baldur's Gate 3 has done is that it has irrevocably upped people's expectations for RPGs. And the most recent example here is obviously Starfield, which came out hot off the heels of BG3 just a month later. And to say that Starfield was divisive is an understatement, as no matter where you looked, there have been equally as many people loving it as there have been people disliking it or downright despising Bethesda's latest heavy hitter. Now, as much as Starfield is an enjoyable game in its own right, it just feels vastly outdated compared to Baldur's Gate 3, which my buddy Big Dan Gaming provided excellent examples of in his own critique video. And the main reason for this isn't the constant loading screens, the hilarious and frequent bugs, the cookie-cutter weapons and shallow combat mechanics, or the barren and procedurally generated worlds, but from my point of view, it boils down to a mostly uninteresting cast of characters and just downright boring and unengaging dialogue scenes. I'll tell you this much, if the roles were reversed and Starfield came out a month before Baldur's Gate 3, I might have been more lenient, but because I'd already played through BG3 twice by the time Starfield came out, I just couldn't help but feel incredibly uninterested in most conversations in Starfield, and I think this is where the main problem lies and why so many people compare these two games. Because you see, both games are RPGs, both games have a lot of choices, both games have a lot of dialogue scenes. And Starfield's release proved, at least from what I've seen frequently posted on different websites and from my own feelings, that Baldur's Gate 3 has really set a new bar for true role-playing games going forward. But to be completely fair here, I didn't want to make this video to just completely dump on Starfield, because as I mentioned earlier, I don't actually think that it's a bad game. But in comparison to something like Baldur's Gate 3, it just didn't measure up. Which is insane, because that is a thought that I wouldn't even have entertained a year ago. But as time goes on, as more and more AAA RPGs comes out, I'm certain that I, and many others, will still feel this way. That these games simply won't scratch that itch that Baldur's Gate 3 left us with. And it's a big itch. Fuck you, Larian, with love. All I can hope for is that BioWare gets their pants in order and delivers us something extraordinary with the next Dragon Age game and the next Mass Effect game. Because those games are really the only ones playing in the same ballpark when it comes to cinematic, story-driven, character-driven RPGs. And if they don't scratch that itch, what if any other RPG arrives in the future that just can't measure up? Well, then at least we still have the originals, and Baldur's Gate 3, of course.